The weight of my duffel bag pressed firmly against my shoulder as I walked up the porch steps of my house. 6 long years of active deployment were finally over. 6 years of dust, noise, and longing for the quiet comfort of home. I slid my key into the deadbolt, holding my breath. I hadn't called ahead. I wanted to surprise my wife, Clara Vance. I unlocked the front door and stepped into the entryway, setting my heavy military gear on the rug. "Clara," I called out, my voice raspy with anticipation. "Honey, I'm home." Silence hung in the air for a second, followed by quick footsteps echoing down the hallway. Clara emerged from the kitchen, wearing a loose summer dress. The moment her eyes landed on me, she froze in her tracks, turning as pale as a bedsheet. There was no joy on her face, only pure, unadulterated panic. "Ethan," she gasped, her hands instinctively clutching her stomach. What are you doing here? Your deployment wasn't supposed to end until next month." I took a step toward her, but my eyes dropped down to her midsection. Beneath the loose fabric of her dress, her abdomen curved outward in a prominent, undeniable swell. She was at least 6 months pregnant. "Clara," I stammered, my heart slamming violently against my ribs as cold sweat broke out across my forehead. "What is this? You're pregnant?" Before she could answer, a tall man stepped out from the kitchen behind her, holding a glass of juice. He wore a crisp dress shirt and custom trousers. "Who's at the door, Clara?" he asked casually, stepping into the hallway. He stopped dead in his tracks, his eyes widening as he made eye contact with me. It was my younger brother, Owen Vance. "Ethan," Owen murmured, setting his glass down on the side table with a trembling hand. "You're back early." I stood frozen in the foyer, my gaze bouncing between my wife's rounded belly and my brother's guilty face. The air in the room felt suffocating, thick with a truth so horrifying that my mind struggled to process it. "Is someone going to tell me what the hell is going on here?" I demanded, my voice dropping into an icy, dangerous register. "Clara? Owen?" Clara looked at Owen, taking a slow, deep breath before turning back to face me. The panic in her eyes vanished, replaced by an unsettling, callous composure. "It's not what you think, Ethan," she said, crossing her arms over her chest defensively. "Well, actually it is. I'm pregnant, and the baby is Owen's." The words hit me like a physical blow to the chest, knocking the wind straight out of my lungs. "Owen's," I whispered, staring at my younger brother. "You slept with my wife while I was deployed?" "Look, Ethan, let's be realistic here," Owen interjected, taking a step forward and raising his hands in a placating gesture. "You were gone for 6 years. 6 years, man. You left her alone in this big house while you played soldier overseas. Did you really expect her to wait around forever without a real partner?" "I was serving my country," I roared, taking an aggressive step toward him. "I was sending my paycheck home every single month to pay for this house, to pay for her life." "Ethan, calm down," Clara interrupted smoothly, pulling a manila folder from the hallway console table. "We knew this conversation would happen eventually, even if we didn't expect it today. We need to be adults about this." She held the folder out to me. I stared at it, my hands shaking with suppressed rage. "What is that?" I asked, refusing to touch it. "It's an uncontested divorce agreement," Clara explained, her tone completely devoid of guilt or affection. "It's better for everyone if you just sign it quietly. Owen and I are starting a family now. We need the house, and we need stability for the baby." "You want me to sign over my house?" I asked in utter disbelief, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. "The house I bought with my hard-earned military savings? So you and my brother can raise his child in my master bedroom?" "You're never here anyway, Ethan," Owen chimed in, his tone laced with an arrogant smugness. "You belong in the barracks. I belong here. Clara loves me now. We built a life here while you were away. Just sign the papers, take a settlement, and walk away clean. Don't make this ugly." I looked at Clara, searching her face for any trace of the woman I had married 6 years ago. I saw no remorse, no sadness, only cold, calculating selfishness. She was standing next to my brother, united against me in my own living room. "I gave you 6 years of my life, Clara," I said, my voice trembling with a mixture of heartbreak and fierce anger. I took bullets, survived explosions, and dreamed of coming back home to you every single day. And this is how you welcome me? People change, Ethan, Clara replied coldly, shrugging her shoulders. You can't expect me to sacrifice my youth for a ghost. I am not signing anything, I said, pointing a finger directly at Owen's chest. And I am not giving you my home. You two have completely lost your minds if you think I will let you walk all over me. Ethan, don't be stupid, Owen snapped, his face hardening. If you fight us on this, it's going to get messy. Just take your duffel bag and leave. I stared at them both for a long, silent moment, feeling the final threads of my old life snap completely. I grabbed the strap of my heavy duffel bag and slung it back over my shoulder. I'm leaving for tonight, I said, my voice dropping into a quiet, deadly promise as I reached for the door handle. But make no mistake, this isn't over. You took my peace, but you will not take my legacy. I yanked the door open and stepped out into the pouring rain, letting the heavy door slam shut behind me. Rain poured down my face as I stood on the small front porch, my heavy military duffel soaking through at my feet. The door swung open, and my mother, Nora Vance, stood in the doorway. Ethan? Nora gasped, pressing a hand to her chest. Oh my goodness, my boy. You're back early. She threw her arms around my neck, but as she pulled back, her warm smile dissolved into deep concern. Ethan, what's wrong? Why are you shivering? Where is Clara? Mom, I choked out, my voice cracking under the weight of the storm inside me. I need to sit down. She ushered me inside, wrapping a warm blanket over my shoulders and handing me a cup of hot coffee in the kitchen. Tell me what happened, Ethan, Nora urged softly, taking my cold hands in hers. You look like you've seen a ghost. I went home, Mom, I said, staring into the dark liquid in my mug. Clara is pregnant. 6 months. Nora blinked, confusion washing over her face. Pregnant? But Ethan, you've been deployed for over a year. How? It's Owen's, Mom. I interrupted, the words bitter on my tongue. Owen and Clara. They've been together behind my back. They asked me to sign over my house so they can raise his baby there. Nora stood up so fast her chair screeched against the kitchen floor. Her face flushed red with absolute horror and rage. He did what? She shouted, her hands shaking violently. My own son. With his brother's wife? How dare they? How dare he bring such shame and dishonor to this family? They handed me a divorce paper, Mom, I said, my chest tight. They told me to just walk away. Over my dead body, Nora declared fiercely, pacing across the kitchen floor. Owen has always been selfish, but this is a disgustingly disgraceful act. I will not allow him to steal your life, Ethan, not while I still draw breath. The front door chimed, and a tall, broad-shouldered man in a neat military uniform stepped into the hallway. It was my former commanding officer, Captain Marcus Cole. Nora, the front door was unlocked. Captain Cole stopped short, his eyes locking onto me. Ethan? Son, what's going on here? Your mother called me saying it was an emergency. Captain, I said, standing up to shake his firm hand. It's a disaster. I quickly explained the betrayal, watching Captain Cole's jaw harden into steel as the details came out. Listen to me carefully, Vance, Captain Cole said, sitting at the table and leaning forward with intense focus. Emotion is your enemy right now. You are a soldier. Right now, you are treating this like a victim, but you need to treat it like a tactical operation. A tactical operation? I asked, frowning. Precisely, Cole nodded. Assess the damage, secure your assets, and cut off the enemy's supply lines. If you let anger dictate your moves, you will lose in court. We need facts, numbers, and leverage. Marcus is right, Nora agreed, walking over to her desk and pulling out a metal filing box. Before you deployed, Ethan, you gave me copies of your property deeds and financial power of attorney documents. Let's look at everything right now. We spread the financial statements and property titles across the dining table. Captain Cole pulled out his reading glasses, scanning line by line through the bank records. Vance, when was the last time you checked your joint military savings account? Cole asked, his eyebrows knitting together in deep concern. About 3 months ago, from the base terminal, I replied. I had over $80,000 saved up from my deployment bonuses. Well, look at this, Cole said, sliding a printout toward me. Look at the transfer history from 6 weeks ago. My eyes scanned the paper, and my heart sank into my stomach. Zero balance? Where did $80,000 go? It was transferred directly into an account owned by Vance Enterprises, Nora read aloud, her voice trembling with rising fury. That's Owen's shell company. He drained my savings? I asked, my blood boiling. $80,000? It gets worse, Ethan, Nora said, holding up a notarized document with a pale face. Look at the home equity line of credit filed 2 months ago. There is a second mortgage taken out on your house for $150,000. How could he do that without my signature? I demanded, slamming my fist against the table. Look at the bottom line, Ethan, Captain Cole pointed out, tapping the paper. Clara signed as the primary homeowner, using the power of attorney paperwork you left her for emergencies. She put your entire property up as collateral to fund Owen's business ventures. They didn't just betray my marriage, I whispered, the crushing weight of reality settling in. They robbed me blind while I was fighting overseas. They used my blood money to fund his company. This isn't just a marital dispute anymore, Vance, Captain Cole said, his voice dropping into a stern, commanding tone. This is grand larceny and bank fraud. They took your money and risked your home. Nora placed her hand firmly over mine, her eyes burning with fierce determination. We're going to fight them with everything we have, Ethan. Owen is my son, but what he did to you is unforgivable. We will tear down every single lie they built. I looked at my mother and Captain Cole, feeling the cold weakness in my heart transform into absolute steel. You're right, Captain, I said, locking eyes with him. The emotional breakdown is over. It's time to start the counteroffensive. The air-conditioned glass lobby of Vance Enterprises felt sterile and cold. I walked in alongside Captain Marcus Cole, my dress uniform sharp and my posture rigid. I wasn't the grieving husband anymore. I was a soldier executing a mission. Keep your cool, Ethan, Captain Cole murmured quietly as we stepped out of the elevator onto the top floor. Let him hang himself with his own words. I intend to, Captain, I replied coldly. We pushed past the glass doors into Owen's executive office. My brother was leaning back in his leather chair, a smirk playing on his face as he typed on his laptop. He looked up, his smile instantly turning into an arrogant sneer when he saw us. Well, look who brought his superior officer to fight his battles. Owen drawled, spinning his pen between his fingers. Did you come here to cry about Clara again, Ethan? Or are you finally ready to sign the property transfer papers? I came for my $80,000, Owen, I said, stepping right up to his heavy oak desk and leaning over it. And an explanation for the illegal second mortgage you took out on my house. Owen laughed, tossing his pen onto the desk. Your house? Ethan, you were gone for 6 years playing hero in the sand. You abandoned Clara to rot in that empty house while you marched around in boots. I was serving my country to secure our future. I snapped, my knuckles turning white against the polished wood. You drained my military deployment bonuses. You didn't build anything here, Ethan, Owen said, standing up and buttoning his jacket with a smug smile. I built this company. I kept Clara warm. I took over the family legacy while you were away playing soldier. Frankly, I deserve that house far more than you ever did. Consider that money my management fee. You forged my authorization with Clara to secure a $150,000 loan. Captain Cole interjected forcefully, stepping forward. That is bank fraud, son. Federal law enforcement doesn't care about your petty, personal excuses. Good luck proving forged authorization when Clara signed as joint power of attorney. Owen sneered, crossing his arms. Now get the hell out of my corporate office before I have security throw you out. You don't need to call security, Owen. A calm, sharp female voice declared from the office doorway. We all turned to look. A woman in a dark gray business suit stood there, holding a thick leather tablet case. Her eyes were hard as flint as she stared down my brother. Lillian? Owen gasped, his arrogant composure instantly cracking. What are you doing here? I left my master key card yesterday, Owen, she said smoothly, walking into the room and ignoring him completely as she turned toward me. You must be Ethan Vance. I am, I said, looking at her in confusion. And you are? Lillian Vance, she replied, extending a hand to me. No relation yet, thankfully. I was Owen's fiancée until 3 months ago, until I caught him cheating on me with your wife. Owen's face flushed bright red. Lillian, keep your mouth shut. This is private corporate business. It stopped being private when you used my firm's software to process your shell company transfers. Owen, Lillian replied icily, turning back to face me. Ethan, I am a certified forensic accountant. I spent the last 12 hours pulling the master transaction ledgers from Owen's local accounts. You accessed my private servers? Owen yelled, taking an aggressive step toward her. Captain Cole instantly shifted his weight, stepping between Owen and Lillian with a towering, dangerous presence. Sit down, son, before I put you down. Owen swallowed hard, backing away toward his desk. What did you find, Lillian? I asked, my interest peaking as I watched my brother squirm. He didn't just take your $80,000, Ethan, Lillian revealed, opening her tablet and displaying a complex financial flowchart. He used your home equity loan as collateral for a high-risk commercial property scheme that is currently bleeding $30,000 a month. He's completely insolvent. You backstabbing snake. Owen spat at Lillian, his voice rising in sheer panic. I gave you everything. You gave me lies, Owen, Lillian retorted calmly. Just like you gave Ethan lies. You are a fraud living on borrowed time and stolen family money. Can you trace every single dollar back to my deployment account? I asked her, looking directly into her eyes. Every cent, Lillian confirmed with a confident nod. I have the digital signatures, the offshore transfer routing codes, and the forged authorization forms Clara submitted. It's an open and shut case of systemic embezzlement. This is insane, Owen shouted, slamming his fists onto his desk. Ethan, you're my brother. You can't ruin my business over a domestic misunderstanding. You ruined your own business the moment you stole my life savings, Owen, I said, stepping past Captain Cole to look my brother dead in the eye. You thought I was just a naive soldier who would come home and quietly bow out. You thought you were smarter than everyone else. Ethan, please. Owen stammered, his arrogant bravado completely melting away in a desperate fear. I am giving this entire forensic audit to the state prosecutor, I said, taking the tablet from Lillian. You wanted my house, my money, and my wife, Owen. Now you can explain all of it to a judge. Let's go, Vance, Captain Cole said, gesturing toward the exit with a cold smile. We have a legal filing to prepare. I turned my back on Owen's frantic begging, walking out of his office alongside Lillian and Captain Cole, knowing the net was finally closing in on him. The morning sun reflected off the polished wooden desk inside Captain Marcus Cole's study. A thick stack of court-stamped legal documents lay neatly organized before us. Everything is officially set in motion, Ethan, Captain Cole declared, sliding an official blue folder across the desk. The judge signed the emergency injunctions 45 minutes ago. So all the accounts are locked? I asked, picking up the paperwork to read the official judge's seal. Every single one, Cole confirmed with a grim nod. Your joint bank accounts, Clara's personal accounts, and Owen's corporate holdings at Vance Enterprises. They cannot withdraw a single dime until the criminal embezzlement hearing concludes. What about the house? I looked up, my chest tightening with anticipation. The court issued an emergency order of sole occupancy, Cole replied firmly. Clara and Owen were officially served with a 72-hour eviction notice 30 minutes ago. Sheriff deputies delivered it personally. Before I could reply, the front doorbell rang loudly, echoing through my mother's house. I walked out to the hallway, opening the door to find Clara standing on the porch. She looked pale, her hair disheveled, clutching a yellow legal envelope in her shaking hands. Ethan, she cried, stepping uninvited into the foyer. Have you completely lost your mind? I told you I wouldn't let you steal my life, Clara, I said, leaning calmly against the wall and folding my arms. You were served. You have 3 days to pack your things and clear out of my house. You froze my credit cards, Ethan, she shrieked, her voice echoing off the high ceiling. I tried to buy groceries this morning, and the register declined my card. I have no cash. I have no access to money. That money belongs to me, I replied coldly. The $80,000 you helped Owen steal from my military deployment savings. It wasn't stealing, Clara argued, her eyes welling up with frantic tears. Owen needed an emergency investment loan for his business. He was going to pay it back by putting a second mortgage on my house without my permission? I asked, letting out a bitter laugh. That is bank fraud, Clara. You forged my authorization. Clara took a step closer to me, lowering her voice into a soft, pleading tone. She reached out, placing her hand gently over her rounded belly. Ethan, please, she whimpered, looking up at me with wide, emotional eyes. Think about the baby. I am 6 months pregnant. How can you be so heartless? Do you really want to put the mother of your brother's child out on the street? I looked at her hand resting on her stomach, feeling a brief, dull ache in my chest. But then I remembered the cold arrogance on her face when she handed me those divorce papers 3 days ago. You didn't care about my well-being when I was facing real gunfire overseas, Clara, I said, my voice steady and unwavering. You didn't care about my future when you signed away my home to fund Owen's greedy lifestyle. I made a mistake, she sobbed, tears streaming down her makeup. I was lonely, Ethan. You were gone for 6 years. Owen was just there for me. Being lonely doesn't excuse grand larceny, I stated firmly. You used my deployment money to build a fantasy life with my brother. Now that fantasy is over. If you proceed with these criminal charges, Owen and I could face actual prison time, Clara yelled, her desperate tone shifting back into sharp panic. What happens to my child if I am locked away? Do you want your own nephew to be born behind bars? That is a choice you and Owen made together when you chose to commit felony embezzlement. I replied without a trace of hesitation. You brought this upon yourselves? You are a monster, Ethan, she screamed, slapping her hand against her side in utter frustration. I thought you were a good man, a protective husband. I was a protective husband, I said, stepping closer to her and looking her dead in the eye. And I protected you for 6 long years. But you destroyed our marriage. I am not going to let you destroy my future too. Captain Cole walked into the hallway, standing tall beside me with a severe, imposing presence. Mrs. Vance, you are currently on private property. If you do not leave immediately, I will personally call the sheriff's department to have you removed for trespassing. Clara stared at Captain Cole, then looked at my cold, unyielding face. The realization finally hit her that her emotional manipulation had completely failed. Owen will fight you on this, she spat, backing out toward the front porch. He has high-powered corporate lawyers. He won't let you take his business down. Owen's corporate lawyers quit 20 minutes ago when his retainers bounced due to the asset freeze. Captain Cole informed her smoothly. He is entirely on his own. Clara froze on the porch step, her jaw dropping as absolute terror washed over her face. She looked like a drowning person, suddenly realizing there were no lifeboats coming to save her. 72 hours, Clara, I said quietly, gripping the edge of the front door. Make sure every piece of Owen's clothing is out of my master bedroom before the deputies return. I pulled the door closed, shutting out her hysterical cries and locking the deadbolt firmly into place. I turned back to Captain Cole, feeling a profound sense of strength rising inside me. The siege was working, and their web of lies was falling apart. 3 weeks had passed since the court froze every asset tied to Vance Enterprises. I sat at my mother's kitchen table, sipping coffee, while Lillian Vance laid out fresh court updates in front of me. The dominoes are officially falling, Ethan, Lillian said, tapping a red pen against a legal brief. Every single venture investor pulled out of Owen's firm this morning. Did the grand larceny charges hit the financial news? I asked, setting my mug down. Front page of the local business section, she confirmed with a satisfied smirk. Once the press reported the bank fraud and embezzlement investigation, his backing vanished overnight. Vance Enterprises is filing for Chapter 7 bankruptcy before noon. So he's completely broke, I said, a wave of cold reality settling over me. Beyond broke, Lillian replied. He's facing millions in liability, 0 liquid cash, and criminal charges. He can't even afford a public defender. The front door banged open with violent force, startling my mother as she walked in from the garden. Owen stormed into the living room, his clothes wrinkled, his hair wildly disheveled, and dark circles ringing his bloodshot eyes. Clara trailed behind him, sobbing softly as she clutched her swollen stomach. "Mom!" Owen screamed, his voice cracking with sheer desperation. "You have to help me. Ethan is destroying my entire life." Nora crossed her arms, her jaw set like granite as she stepped between Owen and the hallway. "You destroyed your own life, Owen. Don't you dare come into my house blaming your brother for your crimes." "He froze my accounts, Mom," Owen shouted, flailing his arms frantically. "My investors walked out. I am bankrupt. Do you understand? I have nothing left." "You had everything, Owen," I said calmly, standing up from the dining table and stepping into the living room. "You had a thriving reputation, a family, and a brother who trusted you. You threw it all away because you were greedy." Owen turned on Clara, his face twisting with sudden, venomous rage as he pointed an accusing finger at her. "This is all your fault," he yelled. Clara gasped, pulling back in shock. "My fault? Owen, what are you talking about? You nagged me every single day for a bigger house and a better lifestyle." Owen spat, glaring at her with pure disgust. "You told me Ethan would never find out about the loan. You convinced me to take his deployment money so we could build this stupid dream. I didn't force you to forge those bank documents, Owen." Clara sobbed, fresh tears spilling down her pale cheeks. "You told me you were a brilliant businessman. You told me you were better than Ethan. I took care of you while he was away." Owen sneered coldly. "And now you're just a massive financial liability, dragging me down into prison." Clara stood frozen, staring at him as if he were a complete stranger. The painful truth finally washed over her face. "You never loved me," she whispered, her voice trembling with devastating realization. "You didn't want a family with me. You just wanted Ethan's life. You wanted his house, his honor, and his money." "Shut up, Clara," Owen snapped, dismissing her completely as he turned back toward me, dropping to his knees on the carpet. "Ethan, please. Look at me. I am your brother, your own flesh and blood." I looked down at him, feeling no anger anymore, only a profound, hollow pit of pity. "Get up off the floor, Owen. You look pathetic." "I am begging you, Ethan," Owen cried, crawling forward a few inches with his hands clasped together. "Drop the criminal charges. Unfreeze just one account so I can pay off the primary creditors. If I go to prison, my life is over." "You didn't care if my life was over when you took out a second mortgage on my home," I replied, my voice steady and unyielding. "You didn't care if I came back from war with nowhere to live." "I was stupid. I made a mistake," Owen pleaded, tears streaming down his face. "Mom, tell him family forgives family." Nora walked over to her desk, picking up a heavy leather-bound folder. She opened it and looked down at Owen with eyes as cold as winter steel. "I called our family estate attorney 2 days ago, Owen," Nora said quietly, her voice echoing through the quiet room. "As the sole executor of the Vance Family Trust, I have officially executed an emergency clause." Owen's breath hitched in his throat. What did you do?" "I have permanently revoked your status as a beneficiary," Nora declared firmly. "You are officially disinherited. Not a single cent of family money will ever be used to bail you out of your crimes, nor will it go toward your bankruptcy debts." "Mom, no!" Owen shrieked, slamming his hands against the floorboards. "You can't do that to me. I'm your son. A son does not rob his brother while he is fighting overseas," Nora said, her voice trembling with emotion but holding firm. "You chose this path of deceit, Owen. You and Clara burned your own home to the ground. Now you will sit in the ashes." Clara buried her face in her hands, weeping quietly near the front door, while Owen slumped backward onto his heels, completely broken and speechless. The arrogance that had defined him for years had vanished entirely, leaving behind a hollow shell of a man facing the full weight of his consequences. "It's time for both of you to leave," I said, stepping forward and opening the front door wide. "The sheriff will be at my house in 2 hours to execute the final eviction. If I find either of you on my property after that, you will be arrested on the spot." Owen slowly pulled himself up from the floor, refusing to look me in the eye. He dragged his feet out toward the porch, with Clara following silently behind him, completely severed from the fortune and family they had tried so hard to steal. I closed the door behind them, taking a deep, clean breath. For the first time in months, the air felt clear. The morning sun cast a bright, golden light across the freshly painted porch of my house. I stood on the top step, breathing in the crisp air, feeling the peaceful quiet of the neighborhood settle around me. "The house looks better than it ever did, Ethan," my mother, Nora Vance, said, walking out through the front door with 2 mugs of coffee in her hands. "Thanks, Mom," I said, taking a warm mug from her with a smile. "It took 3 months of hard work, but it finally feels like my home again." "The court officially finalized the restitution transfer this morning," Nora said, leaning against the railing next to me. "Every single dollar Owen and Clara took from your deployment savings has been restored to your bank account." "And the second mortgage?" I asked, looking over at her. "Fully cleared," Nora confirmed softly, her eyes shining with pride. "The bank canceled the loan after the court convicted Owen of fraud. You owe nothing on this house, son. It belongs entirely to you." Footsteps echoed up the wooden walkway, and Captain Marcus Cole strolled up the steps, wearing a sharp civilian suit. He held a leather folder under his arm, smiling broadly as he looked around the yard. "Mind if an old officer joins you for morning coffee?" Captain Cole asked, offering a crisp military salute before shaking my hand warmly. "Always welcome, Captain," I replied, gesturing toward the porch chairs. "Did you bring the final legal updates from town?" "I did," Cole said, opening his folder as he sat down. "I stopped by the courthouse to check on the final sentencing records for your file." "How did everything wrap up for Owen and Clara?" I asked, taking a slow sip from my mug as I listened intently. "Owen received 4 years in state prison for felony bank fraud and grand larceny," Captain Cole reported smoothly. "His corporate bankruptcy is finalized, and his business license has been permanently revoked." "And Clara?" Nora asked, her tone filled with quiet gravity. Given her pregnancy and cooperation with the state prosecutor, the judge granted her 3 years of strict probation, community service, and mandatory court-ordered restitution, Cole explained. "She's currently living with her parents in another state, raising her child far away from here." "It's a heavy punishment," I said, looking out toward the driveway where my old truck sat washed and ready. "But they made their choices. They thought they could exploit your military service, Ethan," Captain Cole said, looking me dead in the eye with deep respect. "They assumed a soldier coming home from war would be too exhausted to fight back. They forgot that resilience is what defined you long before you ever wore a uniform." "I spent 6 years surviving overseas," I said, leaning back against the porch pillar. "When I first walked through that front door and saw them together, I felt like my whole life was shattered into pieces. I thought my honor meant nothing to the people I loved most. And look at you now," Nora said, placing a gentle hand on my shoulder. "You didn't break, Ethan. You stood tall, defended your integrity, and reclaimed what was rightfully yours." "I learned something important through all of this, Mom," I admitted, turning to face her and Captain Cole. "Real strength isn't about avoiding pain or pretending betrayal doesn't hurt. It's about how you choose to carry yourself when everything around you collapses." "You carried yourself like a true leader, Vance," Captain Cole said, raising his coffee mug in a quiet toast. "You fought this battle with facts, honor, and absolute discipline. You didn't lower yourself to their level." "No," I agreed, a genuine feeling of peace settling over my heart. "I chose to protect my legacy instead of letting anger consume me. I lost a wife and a brother, but I gained my freedom, my self-respect, and my future back." A sleek sedan pulled into the driveway, and Lillian Vance stepped out, holding a thin manila envelope. She walked up the porch steps with a light, confident smile. "Am I late for the victory celebration?" Lillian asked playfully, handing the envelope directly to me. "Never late, Lillian," I laughed, opening the file to reveal an officially stamped court certificate. "What's this?" "That is your final certificate of clear title from the county registrar," Lillian explained, leaning against the wooden railing. "Your home is officially 100% free of any liens, mortgages, or claims. You are officially starting with a completely clean slate." "Thank you, Lillian," I said warmly, looking at her with deep gratitude. "Without your forensic work, Owen would have dragged this legal battle out for years." I did it because you deserve justice, Ethan, she replied softly. You showed everyone what it truly means to stand up for the truth. So, what's the next step for you, Ethan? Captain Cole asked, looking out over the sunny front yard. Now that the storm has finally passed, I looked at my mother, then at Captain Cole and Lillian, feeling the heavy weight that had rested on my shoulders for months completely vanish into the morning air. The betrayal, the heartbreak, and the legal battles were all behind me now. My deployment is over, I said, a firm, confident smile spreading across my face. It's time to build a new life. A life built on truth, real loyalty, and absolute peace. To new beginnings, Nora said gently, holding her mug high in the warm sunlight. To new beginnings, I repeated, clinking my mug against hers as the bright morning sun bathed my home in pure light, signaling the start of an honest, victorious future.